This is a museum exhibit on Genghis Khan that I visited recently. It was full of lots of interesting stuff. There were swords, armor, arrows, yurts, saddles, and siege machines. It was all pretty entertaining, though it did tend to gloss over the more genocidal aspects of the Mongolian conquests. As an archer, some exhibits also struck me as a bit problematic. For example, there was this display of three fearsome-looking warriors. They were clearly meant to give the place an authentic, intimidating atmosphere. But walking around behind them, there was this strange placement of the rider's quiver. Now, it should be acknowledged that back quivers were historically used by many cultures. For example, they are mentioned in the Iliad and Gilgamesh, and they are prominently depicted in artwork from ancient Greece and Mesopotamia. Similar quivers are still used in some parts of Africa, typically for carrying poisoned arrows. However, this particular style of quiver that the Mongolian horseman was wearing is generally accepted as having been suspended on the belt. It's also most likely that the arrows were stored with the points up, not down. And, crucially, the museum's Mongol quiver was missing any sort of protective cap or cover. The entire purpose of this design was to protect arrows from the elements during long journeys. The rider's bow was also a bit questionable. Rather than an authentic conquest-era bow, it seemed more like a piece of firewood with some fur wrapped around it. I suppose the curators were going for a rustic Conan the Barbarian type look. There was a slightly better bow on display at the other end of the hall. It claimed to be a reconstruction of a conquest-era bow, but it felt like it was well over 5 feet long. Maybe it's based in part on the bows currently in use in Mongolia, which are heavily influenced by the large composites used by the relatively recent Manchu dynasty of China. By contrast, actual Mongol bows from the Middle Ages are much more compact, with very short working sections and slightly recurved ears. There are both contact and non-contact recurves, with the former having very small leather string bridges. The accompanying arrows also seemed a bit Manchu influenced. The arrowheads were genuine, but the long shaft and very large feathers were modern. Original arrows have much more reasonably sized fletching. One other interesting thing I noticed was that they were playing scenes from an A&E documentary, which had footage of modern Mongolians doing some archery, both on foot and on horseback. The ones on foot were using a thumb draw, but the ones on horseback appear to have converted to using a 3-finger Mediterranean draw, which is of course quite effective, but for them it's likely not their traditional method. There are references in Chinese sources to the thumb draw being used by the Mongolians at least as early as the Tang dynasty. The exhibit was otherwise well put together and rather enjoyable. There were some Italian swords allegedly brought to medieval China by Marco Polo. Metal passports with intimidating inscriptions. And lots of colorful art.